All right, it's 5 o'clock, so we're going to call the meeting to order. We could have the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody here this evening. We're going to make our way through the budget here this evening, or at least some of the items. I hope that everybody tries to keep some of their quotes or comments to a reasonable length, so we're not here for 4 or 5 hours. Gary, do we have anybody here with public participation or questions we need to address?
I didn't receive any written or verbal requests for public participation, but it was brought to my attention by someone here that we have a resident in the community by the name of Dan Thibodeau, who takes it upon himself to help clean our sidewalks and help our local businesses on Main Street. There was a write-up on him on the St. John Valley Times.
Yes.
And Dan takes great pleasure in helping people out. And so I think, it would be good for us to recognize him by maybe form of a motion, so we can put that in the record.
Are you thinking of doing something more than just to recognize him? Are you talking about a plaque? Are you talking about anything else? Or?
I don't know, I mean, whatever.
Okay, whatever, then I would look for a motion. Dan, yep, we'll get a second.
I make a motion that we recognize Dan Thibodeau. It means a lot to him, and if somebody could just print up a little document recognizing him for his dedication to the store owners on Main Street as a good Samaritan, I'm sure it would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, do I have a second?
Yeah.
Yep. Any other comments?
Only that for me, like, just that I appreciate him too, and it's great to have somebody like that.
He has been, he's been in our community for as long as I can remember, and, he's always a kind-hearted person, very willing to help out. So, we're going to acknowledge him with what, just a format of for?
I'll put together a resolution maybe
Okay.
that recognizes him, and then I can have it at the town office for you all to come in and sign.
Very good. All in favor? Opposed?
Thank you, Dan.
All right, Ken.
Sorry he's watching. Sorry he's watching.
I'm going to skip then having to read this public participation closure. Go right to the articles. Article 1, to consider bid proposal for the new police cruiser for the police department.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm just going to put it out as a reminder that we opened bids at our last meeting,
Yep.
or a couple meetings ago, and we had the bid opening there and didn't give you all enough time to really sort through it, and so we asked the police department to summarize those bids
Yep.
and be prepared to talk about it. So Ross is here to explain the bids, how they came in, and explain the need.
So we did receive bids from Percy's, Pelletiers, and Griffith for a Dodge Durango, Dodge Charger, and the Ford SUV. I guess the difference between the Durango and the Charger is under $2,000. So I know for us, as of today, we hit 180,000 miles on the silver SUV, the Ford, and it's going to need a lot of work put into it. So we are, well, if it had been a horse, we would have put it down by now. But so we're going to retire that one right off. So we are asking for an SUV. The Charger's a nice vehicle, but in the wintertime, it doesn't have a lot of ground clearance. So if there's a snowstorm, the officers are getting caught up in the snow. So the Dodge Durango from Percy's came in at $32,590. Pelletiers was $32,124. Percy's Charger came in at $30,190, and the SUV from Griffith came in at $39,205. So I'm requesting that we go with the Dodge Durango from Pelletiers for $32,124. And the upfitting for the vehicle, for the equipment, is pretty much all the same for all three vehicles. We're in the $7,000 range.
So,
I make a motion, we accept the bid for the Dodge Durango from Pelletiers for $32,124.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second it so we can.
Yep, so any more discussion?
Okay, so I was really having a hard time with this, having a hard time to swallow that we were getting a vehicle right now. I guess the 180,000 miles must have went over my head at the last meeting because I thought it was lower than that. What is the mileage on the other two?
The other, on the Dodge Charger's at 45,000, and the Ford Taurus is at 92,000. So we're looking at, if we don't do something this year for the two remaining vehicles, next year, we would probably be well over 100,000 on each of the other two vehicles, so we might need two vehicles next year.
And how much, I know we're gonna get to this, but for me, like, how much is in the budget right now for vehicle repair? Do you know that number, or?
I do.
Okay, I'll look.
There is an amount there.
I got it right here, 4,500.
Is that the same that it's always been?
No, it's up from
It's up because the vehicles are aging, the fleet hasn't. So that
previous,
could,
the previous 3 budget years, they were $3,500 appropriated for vehicle repairs.
And if we approve this, would you be reducing your vehicle repair?
that could be
request?
reduced because the vehicle would be under warranty.
The other ones are still under warranty?
No,
No, but they're newer.
they're newer.
And how old are these other vehicles, the Charger and the Taurus?
The Charger is a 2019, and the Taurus is a 2017.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
What happens to these vehicles once you retire it? Does that go out to bid to somebody? Does
The
it go to
last
auction?
vehicle we retired, Gerald took it over to use for maintenance for the town.
Because Gerald had an old pickup
Mhm.
that died right around that same time. And so we just kind of took over that SUV, that Taurus, to, for his role in community buildings and stuff like that. And I think Ross, you said that Gerald's car that he has now is in better shape than the one.
Then the silver SUV, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, Mr. Reno?
These are always difficult decisions to be made. The Board of Selectmen is put in place to make these decisions. We certainly don't take these seats to make friends. We take these seats to make decisions. We make these decisions based on numbers, with the taxpayers in mind. Personally, I don't like to be addressing something like this, or a department head that's got a gun on his. I don't want to make enemies with this issue, but speaking for the taxpayers and the tax bills that go out, I believe that number one, we all know, we're all old enough here to know that vehicles nowadays last a lot longer than they would have traditionally 25 years ago. We've just heard that the last police cruiser that was retired was handed over to Gerald at Public Works, and that vehicle is still on the road. Granted, it doesn't get the mileage that it would from police officer use. When I look at the budget for the police department, certain areas I'm perfectly comfortable with. The wages, perfectly comfortable with. But other expenses, I have a problem with. From our own personal experiences in different businesses, when you're under the gun the way that the town of Madawaska is financially right now, sometimes it's best to hold off for a later date. Now, I have to ask myself when I vote on an issue like this, what are the, is this a need. And to establish whether something is a need or not a need, you have to ask yourself, if I don't move forward with this, what are the consequences gonna be? So if we take $40,000,
Try to
and
make it brief, Mr. Daigle, okay? We're already over 3 minutes.
But I think I could address what he's,
I think we understand your point, yep.
over the last 10 years, we have not used any taxpayer money to purchase vehicles. It was all through asset forfeiture. This vehicle would also be purchased with the last remaining funds from the asset forfeiture. So there's no taxpayer money that's been used this will have been to purchase the last 4 police vehicles.
but had we not purchased a vehicle with those funds that you're mentioning, could those same funds be applied to something different than a vehicle?
No.
So this is,
Police vehicle, police equipment, I think is the way that line item is written.
well, my stand is, I'll make it short, my stand is that this could hold off. That's my stand as a selectman. But the rest of the board will get to vote on this.
Anybody else? Yep, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I know that the money is in the funds from forfeiture, so even if we wait a year or two, the money's gonna sit there until we buy a vehicle, because it needs to be for that or equipment. And the other thing is the big thing is reliability. When they jump in a police car to respond to an event, even though somebody else could use the car for maintenance, you want that car to be reliable. You want it to be able to get to you when you need the help. So I definitely think if we take the public safety into perspective, that a new vehicle may be a good idea.
Anybody else?
The only thing that I'll add is that typically I don't think it's any different than any other vehicle in our fleet. We like to see a bit of a spread in the rotation, so we're not incurring those expenses, like doubling up on having to buy 2 vehicles at once. And so, you know, like Ross mentioned, this was through the asset forfeiture. That was from a case a long time ago. It doesn't get a lot of funds anymore. So in the future, unless there's another case where it would be asset forfeiture that would be worth quite a bit of money, we'll be starting to budget reserves for replacement of cars. So it's more the spread that concerns me of the moving the vehicles out, turning them out. So we don't have the debt, if we don't buy them outright and we finance or lease finance them. So we try to spread out the financing of those so we're not overlapping too much all in certain, year
Yep,
periods.
I think we understand.
And with this vehicle, we would only be looking at retiring another vehicle 3 years from now. So we would be going 3 years without asking.
So you're actually doing what, 25,000 miles on a vehicle per year?
Maybe a little more.
2019, so you've got 45,000 on a 2-year-old car. Yep. All right. We have a motion, we have a second to accept the vehicle, the Dodge Durango from Pelletiers at $32,124. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I do have a question, and I was gonna try to sneak it in before the motions were made, but what's the disposition of the old vehicle? Do we wanna put it out on bid, put that out on trade?
I
And do we
think
wanna use those proceeds to
we
put
could put it out on bid with the understanding that it does need a lot of work.
it as is where it is? And we could,
Okay.
I think you could use those funds to offset that cost.
All right, that's fine. So what, you're gonna put those funds back into what?
Well, I don't know how much we could possibly get for the car, but if it was $2,500, we need to know what we're gonna do with that, because if typically we would trade it, the only reason why I'm asking is kind of important, it's because if we were traded, that financial transaction would be all encompassing into the trade and the invoice. This time, we're gonna trade, that's not with a trade-in, right?
Correct.
So we'll put that out to bid, we'll have to figure out what we're gonna do with those funds, and I'm not sure that, I'm not sure that, we might have to get actually town board approval to appropriate those funds by selling that piece of equipment, because it's not included in the trade. Oh,
Where it was not purchased using taxpayer funding, though. Put it,
yeah, maybe. it's not a whole lot of money to lose sleep over, but I think we should at least have a motion to direct us where to put those funds once we get to
So
that.
can I have a motion to direct the funds that we are gonna receive from the sale of, from that old vehicle? I need a motion to establish what?
I would just say that we use it to offset the cost of this.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna, all right, so can I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Yep, a second? Yep, all in favor? Okay, so whatever funds that we gather from the sale will go to offset the price of the new vehicle. Article 2, to consider bid proposals for the TSD heating oil request for proposals,
So
the town and school department, yeah?
I'll kind of discuss a little bit, because we have guests here, and so they know what we're doing. And so the people, the town, the school, and the water district do a joint request for proposals for heating oil bids, and we send in our quantities. The town has done this for a number of years now. We send them our quantities, the school tells me what they want, an estimated amount per building, and we add those up. We do the same, the water district does the same, and that gives us some combined buying power for bids. So we've been doing this for several years now. It started before I got here. It seems to be working well for us. We put out the bids. The manner that we did it was we emailed all 3 local vendors all at the same time. We put a tracking on the email, so we know that they got the delivery of the bid spec, and we know what time they got delivery, and they confirm that they have it. So we have good tracking of, make sure that the bids get to the delivery, the destination, rather than, they see an ad in the paper, or did they not see an ad in the paper. So we got 3 bids that were delivered today. The bid deadline was 2 o'clock. First bid received was at 12:30 by Deductibles Oil Company. The second bid received was by Dead River at 12:45. And the third bid was by Jsb Energy at 1:03 p.m. And I'll open them up in order of the time that we received them. And if I'm not talking loud enough, you can remind me.
Okay, I'm good.
I'm impressed that a Ford made it 180,000 miles.
We baby it a lot.
So one of the requirements of the bid is that they have to be submitted on time. We would not accept late bids, and then you submit their certificate of insurance liability. So Doc has met the requirement for time and providing the insurance as requested. So I'll go ahead and read that Deductibles Oil would like to present the following pricing structure for you for the upcoming season of July 2021 to June 30, 22. Number 2 heating oil needs for 60 to 63,000 gallons, plus or minus 10%. $2.42 per gallon rack price. We ask for a rack price, but also a locked-in price. Based on today's market, that price does fluctuate, so that one is fluid. The fixed price is $2.3147 per gallon, fixed for the season. And we also asked them for a propane price, but it's more informative for the school. The town doesn't use any propane. Their price for propane on the market today is $1.84.5 per gallon. So all prices above are without tax, are based on today's price, March 17, 2020. We ask that they hold their price for 24 hours, because obviously we have the board open the bids, and the board will award a contract. I will meet with whoever the low bidder is, if it's accepted by the board tomorrow, so we can lock in that price, and we'll execute that contract. Certificate of liability enclosed. We thank you for the opportunity to handle your energy needs. Signed by Chad Markey, Division Manager, Deductibles Oil Company. Second bid received was at 12:45 by Dead River Company. So Dead River has met the time requirement for submitting their bid. They have submitted their certificate of insurance. Dear Select Board members, thank you for allowing Dead River to submit a proposal for your heating oil and propane needs for the upcoming heating season. Please note that the following information is based on your bid spec for the 2021-2022 heating season. Location, it says various locations, 63,000 gallons. Number 2, fuel oil. Option 1, $2.212 market price. Fixed price, 2.3071. 2.3071. Fixed. And the and the propane, various locations, the market price is 1.7229 Madawaska Landing, and the fixed price is 1.5514. And that propane is more for the school than it is for town. Fixed prices are based on market volatility as of March 17, 2021. Contract price will vary based on market conditions at the time of the contract, and they may be higher or lower than the price quoted above. In order to secure the fixed price quoted as a signed fixed price contract, is required by 2 p.m. of the following day of the price is quoted. Please feel free to contact me with any questions. Signed, Russ Mitchell, Branch Manager. And the last bid received was from Jsb Energy at 1:03 p.m. So Jsb has met the requirements to submit a bid on time. They have also submitted their certificate of liability. So they submit, they don't have a letter, but just sort of their own bid form, if you will, that they give to us. Their rack price at $1.9063. That's plus a delivery charge of 24 cents. So you need to add those two together. For a total price per gallon of 2.1463. 2.1463. Their fixed price is for 2.285. 2.285 fixed. All price quotes must be valid from July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2022. Payments are typically net 40 days. Signed, Larry Boyer. So that would mean that
Can I ask you, Gary, that fixed rate that you just gave us there, do we have to add on a delivery charge to that also?
it doesn't show a delivery charge. It shows only on their rack price,
Yep.
the market price, where they add the delivery charge for the 2.1463 total price, and then their total of fixed rate contract price, non-prepaid, 2.285. 2.285. So we've got 2.285. We've got Dingle Oil at, for the fixed, 2.3147. And the Dead River at 2.3071.
You all set?
2.30, 2.28. So it appears that JSB has the low bid for a fixed price.
You need that in the form of a motion then? You accept that bid? I'm sure that we,
Yep.
let's have a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept JSB Energy's bid of $2.285 fixed price with no delivery charge included, just to make sure that
Yep.
it doesn't come up later.
With delivery.
With no additional delivery charge.
With no additional delivery.
Right.
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Oh, Gary, did you have something?
Now, I just have a quick question here on this part, because it seems that this happens every year. And you know, you guys are asking for big pricing on oil at the time of the year where the oil pricing is at its highest. So I don't see why, well, maybe it's too late for this year, but why can't we start doing the oil pricing for continual years later in the summer, where the price of oil is drastically reduced on number 2 fuel oil?
If I may,
Yep.
because we need to know what the number is to put in the budget.
Well, and that's where I'm coming back, you know, we're doing this just before budget. So if you start the process in July and you're asking for a budget price, then you could have that included for next year's budget, early in the year. So you start your process a lot earlier.
No, but you would be almost a year ahead of a whole year ahead of
That, I
of
understand
the time
that.
that they would.
I truly understand that, but if you work details out first, then you get save a lot of money, because you could be saving 50 to 75 cents a gallon on number 2 fuel oil if you wait till August to buy your oil.
I mean, the way we see oil going up and down today, I don't know that anybody can start predicting if the price of oil is lower on July than it is in September or it is in March.
Last year, by luck of the draw, the market tanked, the oil market plummeted. On the very day that we signed our contract, we got our bid, and the day after, it went right back up, and the guys are like, I don't know how you guys lucked out. We did a bid, we didn't plan it, we just lucked out, that bid opening was that day, at the bottom, the market fell out, and we got lucky last year.
So we have a motion and we have a second to accept JSB's bid for a fixed rate of 2.285. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Forgot the propane there, guys.
He doesn't have propane, so what are we gonna have?
It's informative. I mean, it's, we've never acted on the propane. It's gonna be the school
Oh, okay.
that takes
No,
care of that. We're more concerned with the,
No, I understand that, but I thought you had to make the propane came in tonight, so.
Okay, moving on to articles with the Finance Committee. This would be Article 1, to consider the first draft of the Town of Madawaska's municipal budget.
Mr. Chair, before we start, just a couple of things, the departments that we plan to do tonight is different than what we've done last year. We used to basically say Department 100, Department 300, you know, and finish whenever we get through them. So we were really, in the spirit of trying to keep meetings not too long, we decided that the format this year would be, we're just gonna say budget meetings. We're gonna estimate, we're gonna decide which departments we think would come, that we could fit in a normal time period. So we have, like tonight, Ross is the first, Kevin will be here with Public Works, Gerald for this safety complex and the town office budget. And if there's time left over, we wanna continue, we can probably grab some of the smaller budgets like general assistance or elections, Nat's here, that's her budget, to fill in if we need to, since we're already here. So, kind of some budget comments that you have in front of you. We don't have all the hard numbers yet. I've highlighted those in yellow. We still do not have the main revenue services, revenue projections. We're waiting on those. Usually they start putting those out late February, March. We see something, which is the preliminary. And it's a pretty sound number. Last year, the exception because of COVID. I didn't check to see if it was up today, but as of yesterday, there was no projection up. But I do expect the revenue numbers to come up from last year. Because, and as a reminder, in Maine law, revenue sharing is 5% of revenue, primarily sales tax goes back to the municipalities. And more than a decade ago, as a recession, first the 08 recession, the state started reducing that, and it went down to as low as 2% of revenue. So that brought Madawaska's share revenue sharing from a high of somewhere in the vicinity of $650,000 to the low, and I'm rounding, to a low of about $250,000. Revenue that we use to basically reduce the amount of money that we need to collect in taxes. So not last year, but the last legislative cycle, with MMA, and the town managers working, we worked hard to testify and to go to committee hearings in Augusta, to work our representatives to push that number back up. And so they agreed then that they were gonna start incrementally giving the towns back more, getting up to 5% over a period of time. So, two things that happen that drives revenue sharing is the revenue projection by the forecasting committee. So they, just like our budget, just like the state budget, it's a forecast. So we expect a certain amount of revenue, we expect to spend a certain amount of money, we have our budget, which is hard, revenue is a projection. And so, they give us a projection, the first one usually in February, beginning of March, and then they give another hard one, they affirm it or adjust it, usually before town meeting season. Okay, last year it came in August or September, we waited a long time, you remember, because we really wanted to see what that number was. We feared the worst. It actually came in lower than the first projection, but better than we thought we were gonna get. So it's my expectation, and I'm hopeful that we're going to get more than last year. And I'll hold on just a second, I'll tell you.
Here.
Last year you had 5.7, 570,000.
Yeah, we were at 582,935 last year. The year before that, 370. And about $350,000 of spending or revenue represents 1 mil, just to kind of round that off. So I feel like we're gonna get at least what we got last year, and I'm confident we're gonna get some more. That's gonna help us. The budget, as proposed, has a place mark of 2% for cost of living. I added some information in front of you, which are COLA comparisons with the valley, some of the valley towns, what was done last year and what's done this year. I also included some wage scales from comparable towns of size, like town Fort Kent, for you to look at when we're thinking about COLA. The police budget is not complete yet, because we are sort of in a holding pattern. It's their negotiating year for their contract, the police union. We've met once. The board wanted to get a full picture of the police budget and somewhat the town's budget as well, before they went further into negotiations with the police union. So I think that after tonight, they'll have that. Obviously, you've had this information for a while. Our plan is to probably, before our next budget meeting, maybe like before the meeting or after the meeting, we would have an executive session to meet with the police union, or to talk about the police union's offer that they made, and see what we're gonna do from there. Sit down with the police union afterwards, with the appointed committee members from both parties, and work through that. And I expect that in the next month, through this budget process, before we're done, obviously, we'll have those numbers figured out, and that will be in place in this budget. But for now, the only thing that you should, as we look at the police budget, that's highlighted are the salaries and wages, because we don't have our new contract. It obviously affects the in-state retirement. I'm expecting to get all the townwide insurances renewal package Friday. So once I get that from them, I'll be able to put in the hard numbers for all of our P&L insurances, property and casualty, P&C and liability. And of course, the last thing on Ross's budget that's highlighted is the $4,500, which was for repairs. We talked about earlier that we probably would be able to knock that down a little bit based on the fact that we're going to move forward and replace that car. Then I want to point out again, this current budget, the way that this is plugged in right now, what you're seeing, reflects a decrease in revenue of $33,271. Remember that I'm basically got the same revenue sharing figure from last year. but right now it's a 33,271 less in revenue. And from the current budget and a decrease in expense of 131,481 for a net difference in budget compared to last year of $98,210 less. Now, you see that there's a note, an asterisk. The current budget expense includes a $25,000 increase in the county tax, $25,941. We're absorbing that. So when you back out the county's increase against ours, our net decrease in budget is $157,422. So with that said, Ross, if you guys have any questions about, generally speaking, about the budget as we're kicking this off, I welcome those questions.
I do. Well, last year we were late in getting a start on our budget. I believe we were in September when we first started. I expressed disapproval of the way that we address our budget. I'm glad that the Finance Committee is here with us tonight. This is a little bit different format, that they're involved with us right from the get-go. I am not a financier by any way, but this week I reached out to two people who do financing just to pick their brains to see if just their opinion, the way we approach our budget. We seem to be working off of last year's budget. And I would prefer to isolate our needs and build from there. So, with nothing further, Lori has a little bit more knowledge dealing with numbers than I do, and perhaps some people from the Finance Committee. Is this an acceptable way to move forward in creating or building a budget for a community? Is this an acceptable way?
So you're putting this question to,
Well, whatever the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen decide, whatever way they want to address this, I will participate, but I am not, I feel that working off of last year's budget, I feel there's a lot of areas that we could be cutting that we're just kind of like just accepting that it's there, it was there last year, and we're accepting it again this year. Where I think there's areas that we can do some significant cutting, if that's what this group so chooses. Or we can just continue the way we've been going at it.
So correct me if I'm wrong, last year when we reviewed the budget, we go through the line item individually, and if there's any form of discussion on our end or your end, we have the ability to bring that up here, is that correct?
that's correct,
So we can go back to the department head at that time and address any type of concern that we would have as a committee, is that correct?
which is the normal way of doing it, yeah.
I feel like we're gonna be fine doing it that way. I mean, lack, and I understand what you're saying, I think lack of not having any previous budget, you're just shooting in the dark, without really any true understanding of what that budget needs to be at least a baseline. So although we have working off a previous year's budget, I believe we've had every opportunity to adjust any number that we see or question any number that we see on any line item given, so.
Okay,
Is
so,
anybody on?
I'm on board.
Yeah, Jason?
Yeah, I think that'll allow us more time to this year to work on line item by line item and really come back and forth, because we're starting early, so I think it is a good way to.
Really, I mean, when you address this line item by line item, I mean, everybody has the ability to question that item, you know, up or down. You know, you don't, nothing gets just pushed over for lack of not knowing any different as far as the figures beyond last year's figures.
I think what's helpful here, Dan, is we have the previous year activity, and you
Yep.
can see what was actually spent. I do understand his point, and I just wanna make it clear, like, in a lot of ways, I agree with Dan on this, because for me, my dream would have been to make a workshop and say, okay, like, you know, we hear from the people of the town, cut. And it would have been nice to have a little workshop to have people bring us ideas and say, where do you wanna cut, what do you wanna cut? But all of these individual items, I've poured over this quite a bit in the last, couple of years, and there's not a significant way to cut and to say what's a need or what's not a need without participation from the community to say and agree which department they think is not a need. Because right now, the only really way to cut is to say we're gonna eliminate the police department or the rec department or, and, you know, you have one person saying, we don't need a rec, we don't need this, and then the neighbor, for them it's a need. And then someone else says, well, we don't need the police department, you know, Van Buren's doing without, but I guess they're struggling right now. So, like, your need and my need and his need and like, nobody has that same picture. And in the community, it's a little bit harder because you have to try to meet the needs of everyone. So I get what you're saying. I just don't see that we could do this differently without
I think
a drastic, you know, shutdown of something and
I think we're going to have the ability, ladies and gentlemen, to look at a line item and understand that, yes, you're working with an assumption of prior year's figures. I mean, you can see what's being used, what's not being used, or whether you decide that you just want to cut that item completely. I mean, that's certainly up to all of us here. You have that ability. So again, I mean, it would be nice to be able to have some of these department heads or folks from, I mean, just our general citizens to come in and discuss some of these items, but
And
I don't know that I can answer to that today. I mean, I just don't have that ability, but anyway, I mean, just having been through the budget process enough, I know that all of us here will have the ability to decide what we want to do with that line item. Yep.
Well, if that's the way we want to go forward, fine. But I would ask, and I'm glad that we have more voices here around these tables tonight, but if at any time any individual has any question on any line item, I would expect that the department head would conclusively prove and justify the spending and convince every person in this room that this is actually a need. Now, you know, I have to appreciate what Lori said as far as needs. You know, this person says, well, I need this. We've all had children and, oh, I need a bicycle. Well, wait a minute. If you can run your old bicycle another year, a need is if you take it out and something suffers, that's a need. But if it's just the fluff, if it's just the frosting on the cake, at this point in time, I think we need to be tightening the belt.
I think we all understand that, Mr. Daigle.
I want to add one more thing, just to kind of be, paint a picture of last year compared to this year. We started the budget process this time last year. And then COVID hit,
January.
and then revenue service, main revenue service had put out a revenue forecast, which would have given us about $70,000 more than what we actually got, but even a lot more than what we got. We got a little bit less than that, but still more than the previous year. And then, no sooner than maybe a couple of weeks, revenue services said, whoa, we're pulling back on that. All gloves are off. Don't hang your hat on that at all. We don't know what revenue is going to look like. And so we had the paving project that we put off, and we put off our budget process, and the emergency order allowed the towns to operate somewhat like a continuing resolution until we could get to a point, and I think the board's position was, let's God Almighty, let's see what the revenue number looks like before we might have to make some big adjustments here. We didn't get that number till the fall. And so by then, when we reconvened and we started working on our budget, you know, we typically would like to commit our taxes in August or September, get our bills out so we can get money flowing and cash flow. But we got close to the fall, we got late in the game, and, you know, funds were getting low, and it was getting critical. So we were on a quick timeline in the fall, obviously, to try to get things. It's not necessarily the case this time. We had more time to work on this, and so it's a vastly different position than we were last year.
I got a question here on COLA. I mean, COLA is cost of living increase, right?
Yep.
Does COLA have to be given to every employee evenly right from the start?
Towns apply their COLAs across the board for all their employees. They don't pick winners and losers.
But you have here some COLA, there's positions that aren't even filled here, and you already have a COLA for them, there's not even a person in that position. So you're giving them a raise before you even hire them.
This is a budget worksheet, okay, and so.
Well, I mean, I understand it's a budget
Can I
worksheet.
talk? Can I talk? Don't interrupt, and I'll explain it to you.
Listen up, let's direct your comments here to
This is
the
a
chair.
budget, this is a budget worksheet, okay? There are vacant positions. If they get hired late in the game, okay, it's gonna be up to this board to decide whether or not that employee has been here for a month, when we adopt this budget, is entitled to that COLA. But we calculate, this is a working workbook, and things calculate out all the way through. We plug in the salaries, we put in the wages, and they get calculated out from top to bottom. So right now, they're all in there. This board's gonna have to decide if one employee who's only been working with the town for 2 months is gonna get this COLA or not. But COLAs, that aside, are applied evenly to all employees. Doesn't matter if they've been here for 3, 5, 15 years, or 6 months.
Yep, Lauren?
The other thing, Gary, that, just so you know, it doesn't even mean, like, when you see the wages for the positions that are not filled, it doesn't mean that that's what the person coming in that's actually gonna make.
Mhm.
Those are just place marks, because you have to have a number, what the average scale might look like, to be able to bring to town budget, because if you don't put that in there, and then you go to your town meeting and you didn't budget it, then you can't hire anyone. So, these numbers are just, actually, and this really was something that I kind of requested, more information, because my brain needs to see what things might look like, but it's not a hard and fast rule that if it says somebody here is gonna make, $30,000 a year, that's what that person would even be hired for. It might be much less than that, so, just to.
So we have a long process to get through. What I'd like to do is get into the budget, let's start
Yes,
working through the
I
items,
was just
line
about to
item by
jump in
line
here
item.
and start.
If there's an item in there on the finance committee that you have a question on,
Thank you.
I guess typically those questions would get directed towards myself, and I would direct them towards you. I would hope that we can be as cordial as we possibly can. We're not all gonna agree on everything that we look at here, okay? That's just not gonna happen, right? So be respectful for one another, ask the questions, and, we'll get the answers out there for what we have. We're not gonna have all the answers here today, or tomorrow, or the next meeting. That's not gonna occur. But give each other respect so we can have an open forum and have a discussion here like normal adults would, and we'll get through this process fairly quickly. If there is an issue or a question on that, raise your hand, we can address it that way, and we can talk about it and get some answers.
Go ahead.
Before we actually dive in, I think that the chair would have to call his meeting to order, because we called ours as a board.
Yep.
I think you guys should
Yeah,
call your
we
meeting
did,
to
yeah,
order.
we went straight to this, I believe, so I do call the meeting to order for this,
At,
5:49.
Is that right?
5:49.
Is that clock right?
5:49.
Thank you.
And you have quorum.
Yes, I do have a form.
So what department are we looking at first?
So right now, we have Ross. Here.
Department what, 310?
Yes.
Thought you weren't gonna be here long.
It's all relative. So as the town manager said, this is a negotiating year for the officers. But I think the 2% was added in to kind of give them a more realistic number of what it might look like after negotiations is done. But that number will change. The only one a COLA would actually apply to would be myself and the secretary, because we're not members of the union. So as we go down, the employee benefits, I think those are all, we have no control over those numbers. Those are insurance numbers. So we'll go down to the,
Go
Well,
ahead.
are we supposed to ask as we're going, or?
oh,
So your health insurance, Ross, I know the policy didn't go up this year. Is this because of a change in, you know, somebody went from,
From their
Single to
parents, from
family,
their
or-
parents' insurance onto, they were
Okay.
aged out of the.
okay,
Okay, I've got a question.
Yep.
Chris, you were saying that we were gonna go
We
down.
can
line-
go through line
line
item by line
Yeah,
item
can
if
we-
we could. If we can do that, I agree.
Can we rattle off and just kind of quickly check if anybody's got any questions on any one of them, like the health insurance? Anybody have any questions? So that we don't go down by a whole block the way we just,
So can I, since we're talking about health insurance, if I just, it's gonna be helpful that I mention this, so what we budgeted for health insurance, the health trust, the Maine Municipal Health Trust gives us the projection for whatever increase they think it's going to be 6 months from now, or late in the year, starting in January. So we assume, this budget assumes a 10% increase, and on average, they can be between 8 and 10% for annual increase in premium. Last year, it didn't go up. We had budgeted for it to go up. We budgeted a 10% increase for 6 months, because it only affects 6 months of our budget. For fiscal year, the health trust bases their rates on the calendar year. So just keep that in mind as we talk about insurance. And sometimes, you might see why is the number so different than last year? It depends on, like, if you're looking from what it is this year to what it was last year, and you see a big difference, that just let us know. Most of the time, when you see that difference, is because somebody changed their plan. They brought in a kid, now they're on the family plan, or they might have not even been on the town's insurance, where we only provide them a small stipend, but their circumstances changed where they had to get on the town plan. And so I think that Carol and I, Carol's right there, we've talked about this in the past, and I think we should probably talk about this as we move forward. We try to take advantage of savings wherever we can. And so when we have an employee who is on a private plan, we budget that private, just the single plan. But sometimes our circumstances change during the year, during our budget, and all of a sudden they're entitled to be on the family plan, okay? If we didn't budget for the whole family plan for that employee, we wouldn't have the funds to pay for that plan that our personnel policy affords them. So I think as a matter of policy, it's important that when we budget for health insurance, that we budget on the assumption that it's family plan, employee plus the dependents for the family plan. Because we don't have a choice. If we hire a new employee, and the prior one that was there was only single plan, and we said, well, we'll just buy the single plan for the year, but we know they're not gonna have a family plan for the next so many years. Somebody comes on the rolls, and all of a sudden, they're entitled to a family plan. We don't have the funds to do that. So I just wanna make that I don't wanna muddy the waters here, but I just want you to know that. That's sort of.
Go ahead, Lauren.
so are you, okay, approved, 2019 to 2020 was 99, and so when we went to 2020 to 2021, you brought it up 10%,
For 6 months.
is that right?
For 6 months.
But now it didn't go up, and now you're bringing it up another 10%?
What happened is that we have an employee who is no longer full-time here.
No, that's fine, but across the board,
Right,
the last time we looked at budgets, we had health insurance. You brought it up 10%.
10% for 6 months.
In case, right, in
Yeah.
case, so 5% for the year.
Mhm.
You brought it up in case you had some fluctuation or in case it went up.
Mhm.
It didn't go up.
No,
But now you've taken that number and brought it up 10% again? This 112, never mind that you changed someone, but across the whole board, across the whole town, did we bring everything up
No.
10% on top of the 10% that was brought up last year?
no, we get their rate that the trust gives us. It's not off the budget sheet.
Okay,
We-
thank you.
It's the rate that they give us, that
Okay.
we know that we have, and we build from there,
Okay,
not from the
that's
the
fine.
budget
I
line.
just,
Right.
thank you.
That's an important factor right there.
That was a good one, yeah.
Anybody else, I mean, so we're talking about employee benefits here, is anybody else questioning anything under that, that item?
The only, Chris, the only question I have on this here is, at one point or another here, especially health insurance, keeps climbing. Does at one point or another, the corporate world turns around and the private world turns around and pays health insurance? And at one point or another, they say, well, we're paying enough health insurance here, from now on, whatever cost increase in health insurance is the burden of the employee. So is that something that can be looked at into starting to decrease back health insurance, to pass that on to the employee? I don't know if I should be asking that question to you, but you asked me to.
I understand what you're saying. I think we talked about this last year, didn't we? If I remember right. I don't have that explanation, but I know somebody.
I can open my mouth again,
Yeah.
if that's okay. So we went through this whole budget process last year, and I'm glad you're asking, because Mano and I were, we all were questioning it, but Mano and I were particularly interested in health insurance. And you're right, it looks like a big number. For me, it was very overwhelming. But when you start comparing your private sector wages with your town wages, which is partly what Gary gave us here, if you take a look at comparisons with other communities, you're gonna get, like, you have like a diesel mechanic working at the town garage. He's maybe making $19 an hour. You got a diesel mechanic working in the private sector at $25, $28, $30 an hour. But they pay some of their health insurance. Our $19 an hour person gets his paid for. It's about it's over $4. It comes out to be, I think between $4 and $5 more an hour. And that makes our town employee still a little bit below private sector as far as the numbers I've looked at. I mean, don't take my word for it, you can do your own. But as far as retention goes, once you have, diesel mechanics like we have in the garage, and you have paramedics and you have police officers, if you start going too far below, you're gonna lose your employees, and you've lost your training, and you've lost your services in your community. So for me, I just said, okay, I look at their package looks big, but I look at that and I add that to their hourly rate, and for me, it's fair. I'm not telling you what to
So,
think,
Chris, but you're saying that the hourly commensurate for health insurance is about only about $4 an hour for each employee.
I think if you divide, I didn't divide every plan out,
Do we have a round number here? We don't have individual numbers, so. And then we have family plans and individual plans. And we're just talking about the police department here, but when you're talking the whole
Yeah.
scope of the municipality,
yeah, I just
The
took an
hourly
average
wage
of what the
changes.
plans are at the time, and I had divided it hourly and an average. I'm sure with each employee, it's a little bit different, but you can never, kind of like Gary said, you can never gauge that based on, who's coming and going, and if they have a child, or if they, get married, or, I'm just, it's just my opinion, Gary. I put some numbers together, and it was something that I was, very adamant on attacking when I came here. And, after doing the work and kind of sitting back and doing the research, I realized that I was wrong. And,
and how about deductibles?
what?
How about deductibles? There's deductibles involved, right?
Yeah,
The health trust only offers 2 plans.
yeah.
Pardon me?
The health trust only offers 2 plans, and the employees have a choice to pick their plan. But we base our budget on the highest plan, because they have the option to go into the highest plan. So the employee can pick a plan that's less expensive, and Carol, correct me if I'm wrong here, because it changes their co-pays too, and they can kind of play the market on their side of things. But at any time, not at any time, but during open enrollment, they can move up from the low plan to the high plan. But the town bases its budget on the high plan because they're entitled to it.
Mr. Daigle?
I was pretty well focused myself on the health insurance. I was kind of leaning the direction that Gary seems to be leaning. Had a good conversation with Laurie this morning. once I weighed that out, I'm on the fence. And I don't know if it's fair to ask these three gentlemen, what would an employee on an average be paying in the plant, in the paper mill, per week?
I don't know what it is off the
Yeah,
top
I
of my
don't
head.
Let me look.
And again, it's subjective to whether that person is single with no kids,
Okay, well,
single with kids, or married with kids, so on and so forth. And I don't know where we are at in comparison, I think.
okay, you know, we have a few department heads here tonight, and I won't be here in 5 months. I won't be dead, but I won't be on the board. I would ask the department heads to at least have a chat with their employees, with their workers, and let them know that healthcare, with the rising cost of healthcare, that I'm sure that in further budgets, that healthcare is gonna become a serious issue. And we won't be able to fly under the radar forever. Sad to say, there will come a day where there will have to be some employee contribution, like everywhere else. We're no different than any other company. It's gonna come to that, so that people might be aware, but again, I'll tell you what my stand is here tonight. I would not vote to have the employees pay any for this year. But like I said, I won't be here in the future when those, but that is coming down the pipe.
Jason, did you still have something to say?
No, I'm all set.
You all set? Ken, were you able to come up with something or see something there?
Well, it depends.
Yeah,
There's
of
different
course.
programs, you know, I can say 100 a week, I can say 2, but if your deductible is only 2,000 or 5,000, you
Of
know,
course.
you're not gonna get an accurate number here
Of
tonight.
course, yep.
And I didn't know we were here to,
Yep.
you know,
No,
discuss
I
changing policies here.
Okay, so let's keep going, Ross.
Were we done with the employee benefits?
No, I have one question. Could we have just a quick explanation on what the police physical fitness benefit is?
That is, every year, the police officers are tested for physical fitness by academy standards. That includes push-ups, sit-ups, and a 1.5-mile run. That is a negotiated item. It was part of their contract, so that would have to be brought up with the union, I guess, for.
All right, let's try to move a little faster here at this point, because we're gonna be here all night. We've only gotten through 2 or 3 items here in half an hour. Okay, Ross, no, I'm not looking at you. Sorry, yep, go ahead.
That's
Excuse
the
me,
process.
Doug, Mr. Chairman, you know, maybe it's gonna go a little faster down the road, but right now we're hitting the first budget and we're hitting all the snags of what, and for me, because I'm just learning what each step is all about. So, you know, you might wanna rush through this here, but you're gonna hit the snag in the next one. So I'd rather take out all the questions on our first part of here, and then all the others are subsequent in the same manner as far as dealing with the line items are, except for some of the, like, public works. So, I had another question here for employee social security. Is that social security to federal, is that social security to the state of Maine retirement plan? Or is that social security to, I don't know, I'm asking that question.
So, town of Madawaska is a town that is in what's called Section 218. When Main State Retirement was created back in the 50s, okay, the towns in Maine had an option to, and I'm speaking generally, so I don't know the exact year,
Yeah.
but towns had an option to either get out of Social Security and just be Main State Retirement, or do both. So Madawaska, Senegat, Frenchville are all, like in other towns, are all Section 218 towns. So employees in the town of Madawaska pay into the Main State Retirement System. The town pays into the Main State Retirement System, and like also into the Social Security system, just like you would be in the private sector. And that's not something that we can get out of. We're locked into that.
So you're paying into two retirement systems?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's a question
No, it's good.
so I'm not rushing you, I'm just trying to understand though.
I understand.
Gary, just so you know, you can make your notes, and when the finance committee, I'm on it with you guys, when we meet as a whole, together as a group,
We can bring that up.
we can discuss those things
Come
again.
back with more questions.
So right now, we'll go through it, we discuss them again as our little group, and then you are more than welcome, like, to make a motion to say, I want the finance committee to recommend that we cut this. I want the finance committee to recommend we cut
Correct.
that. And so, don't feel like you're being,
No, I'm just trying to get the understanding of the
Yeah,
philosophy first, and then
yeah,
after
but
that,
like
you know, so I can
anything
know
you
all the
really
questions
don't
after
agree
that.
with, just make notes, and then we will discuss it again.
Okay? Point taken.
Good. Ross, keep going.
Next line item is police liability insurance, it's kind of self-explanatory, it's provide coverage in case there's a liability issue on behalf of the police department.
And that's a highlighted number, we're gonna get the hard number, probably on Friday. It's a pretty constant number you can see over the years.
Animal control, that covers, any strays we have that we put in the shelter. If for some reason we have vet bills that we need to cover, that comes out of that. Clothing, safety equipment, 4,000, uniforms, equipment for the officers. Contracted services, 13,500, that's the dispatching service with the Aroostook County Sheriff's Office. Dues, $350, that's dues for I use mostly the International Chiefs of Police. They provide model policies that we use to stay in conjunction with state laws of what we need to do for the police department, for the academy standards. They provide other services. It's kind of a sounding board. If I have any questions about what other police departments are doing, I can post something and I'll get answers. Evidence, if we have blood kits that we need to mail out, if we have drug cases where we have to send a specimen to the state lab to be analyzed, that's where that money comes out. Printing, advertising, no parking for the winter, our signs, if we put a job opportunity in the paper, that covers that. Prisoner meals and transports, that covers bringing prisoners. What we try to do is bring our prisoners to Caribou. It's a halfway point to Holton, and the Sheriff's Department is willing to pick them up in Holton and transport them the rest from Caribou, transport them to the jail. So it cuts down on a 4-hour round trip to 2 hours for the officers. Cuts back on the overtime, wear and tear in the vehicles.
Bring him to my house. I'll hold him for you.
It falls under the cruel and unusual punishment. Travel and training, 7,500. Way I like to look at this is retaining officers. We have to provide them training that keeps them interested in their job. Lets them specialize in different activities, like Jamie does all our child abuse cases. He investigates those, which is pretty extensive, so we have to send him to several trainings a year to keep up his certifications. If we send someone to the police academy, that covers that. Officer transfer was an old line item that we had used to, we had to pay off Brunswick Police Department for one of their officers. Office supplies, paper, pens, general supplies, whatever doesn't fall under office supplies.
Before you keep going here, Ross, I just want to remind everybody, let's keep the masks on, huh? Make sure that we're all in compliance. Okay, go ahead, Ross.
Telephone, 3,500, that's set by, not me, I'm told what number to use.
I've got a question on that. You're talking telephone under utilities?
Yes,
Okay, and again, it comes back to what Gary was mentioning a while ago, sorry that you're the first man up at bat here, but on Department 110, 130, 300, 310, 320, 500, 600, and 960, for phone, we have a bill there for $38,950. So if I'm understanding this correctly, two things are happening here. Somebody's getting cheated and somebody's getting rich. But I want an explanation on why we're paying so much for phone.
I guess, Chris, that would be something that you guys could address here in your meeting, or
Jason's got a comment.
Jason, go ahead.
So I agree 100%, 110% actually. The phone system is definitely something we need to look at townwide. I know last
Yeah.
budget season, we
Yeah.
kind of threw things around, but I think we definitely need to look into that now and look at, because there are cost-saving ways that we can save a lot of money on that phone system, I think. And I think it's
So
something we
maybe
need to-
Ross, I would suggest that once we've gone through the budget, because, you're the first man at bat, you're the first one to get hit. All the other departments are gonna be hit equally for a big question mark on phone. And then I don't know where does the responsibility fall upon to follow up on this?
So I think that phone comes in under it's under one umbrella, and then it's shed out, and each department picks up that piece of that, is that correct?
Gary, can you share some light on this a
So
little bit?
it's our voice system, it's internet phone,
Yep.
and so it's 3CX, comes in through Next Vortex, and so it's basically internet phone, and it comes through the central hub. And we disperse the cost out amongst the departments.
And then as far as on our part, we have 2 911 lines that we have to pay for also.
Yeah.
I think that if you go back previous years, if you go all back to 2017, you can see the number was a lot higher than
Back up, I guess.
3,500. So we had a lot of lines before,
You gotta ask
too. And so there was actually a savings from what we were at before. It was a project.
I think we should be reaching out to communication companies, tell them what our needs are, and get a few different prices, because I can't see paying $39,000 for phones.
Yes, Kev?
I agree with him that maybe we should do like we did for our oil.
Yeah.
Get 3 companies to give us a price for our phone system for the town of Madawaska.
Yeah.
That's my suggestion.
Yeah. I think that is a good idea. The only issue is it's kind of a one-time thing, because it's not easy to year by year to transfer phone system from one company to another. But I think, shopping around and seeing maybe some of the services that we're paying for are going hosted rather than on premises. And also in that, part of that was part of the internet, where we have internet at each building that we're paying separate accounts for. That could all be like most communities do. Even the school is doing this partially, where the internet comes into one location and is spread wirelessly across the other departments.
And I would also do with the internet too.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that whole phone system, internet system for all the departments really should be looked at a central location, at a central point, not.
Well, I'm not saying central, I'm saying cheaper.
Well, what I mean central is, it's not gonna be easy for us to go to Ross and say, Ross, you need to reduce your phone and internet bill. It's something we have to do as a town-wide, you know what I mean? A town-wide.
Yeah, I
view.
agree,
That's
I agree.
different.
No, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like, because we had talked about this last year, the same exact item, and I know, we were kind of caught in the middle of COVID and everything else, but, so, I guess going forward through all these budgets, we're gonna be able to look at every one of them and say, we're gonna be able to pick at the phone and the internet, so I think it's fair to say that we just know that
Right.
phone and internet bills are really high, so
Right.
what can we get from an answer from the board as to what you can do to give us a better answer as a finance
Right.
committee on this? How do we address this on this budget? Is it possible?
That's it.
So, forget,
It's your responsibility to do that part, we're just telling you whether we like it or not, we don't. Have fun.
so when we get to phone and internet, Gary, is it fair to yellow highlight those, like the ones you did, like subject to change, once we have?
So when we're done tonight, I'm flagging things as we go. I mean, and I don't see anybody changing it. Are we gonna be changing any numbers tonight here, or are we just talking?
I don't think so,
I don't think we're changing anything tonight.
Just
If
targeting.
there's some things that you want more
Target.
clarification on, we'll highlight them.
So, also moving forward now, I mean, now that we know that these 2 items are going to be items that are gonna carry through on every department, that we don't have to issue this, over and over.
Correct.
Right, I
Gonna
don't
take
think
care
there's
of
any
it
point,
in one fell swoop.
Correct.
Lucky for you, Russ.
Sorry, boss. Okay, keep going. Oh, sorry, Lori.
Well, I have a question, like, who's gonna action this? I mean, is this, is Jason gonna help Gary research this, or Ken, you know a lot about this stuff, would you help us, or are you just gonna,
All I can tell you is that when we went from
yeah,
the old phone system to this phone system, there was a lot of pain. And I think Mark Medora's here, you can probably hear him growl. We had we went from hardwired phone to internet phone, and we had a lot of internet issues. And our phone system was not working good. We had a lot of technical issues to work through, and a lot of those technical issues were with Spectrum and not the provider of our phone system, and Spectrum didn't know how to troubleshoot their issues. And so we actually had Third Eye Global, who takes care of services, our account, for 3CX and Next Vortex.
Yeah.
And having our guys telling Spectrum how to fix their issues on their end, because it's all coding and stuff like that, and beyond my expertise. So there was a lot of hardship when we moved from the old phone system to this phone system. That took months and months to resolve.
Those are the pangs of progress.
Maybe we should have kept the old system.
well, that was more expensive.
Yeah.
Because
That
you
was-
were paying for individual lines,
It was more expensive than before. It actually was.
Well, I
You
think
can
we
look at
should-
what the
Well,
budgeting was before.
it doesn't reflect it in the budget here.
Yeah,
well, all the way back to your first column
first
here.
call to the left.
Okay.
It's 5,000.
No, and I'm not proposing, I'm not proposing that right away we cut the system we're using, I'm just saying, let's sit down,
Let's see
do
what's
some
out there.
research. I know the school has come up with some cost-saving methods to use for their phone system. Maybe we can ask, their representative to come in and talk with us and come up with a solution to say, if we stick with this phone system, what features do we not need? I know some places are still having issues, some places the wrong phone number goes out when they dial out. So it's all things that we can look at all of this, review the system we have now, and see internet and phone system combined where we can cut some costs and save some.
Because the way I see it, you could.
I understand, okay. I think we can just move on from here at this point, because
Yeah.
Gary will address it, and
Yeah.
maybe Jason will help,
Okay, just-
whoever he's looking at.
Doug, I have one more question before we go on there. On the previous year's approved budget, that's what was approved at the town meetings and whatnot for the budget, right?
Correct.
But do you have actual numbers of what was actually spent for those years instead?
Yeah,
What we have is a column for what was spent at the end of the last business year last year. You can see year-to-date expense 6/30/2020. So when you look at approved,
Well, that's for last year, but I'm talking about 17, 18, and 19.
it would be too much information to put in on one page.
Well, then, okay.
So we try to bring forward, that's pretty much.
No, I understand what you're saying, Gary. What was actually spent in 2017, 18, and 19 should be presented here, where it was whatever we spent, so that whether we know what we spent, not what we thought we were gonna spend. I mean, I'm just bringing this point
no, we're just
across.
playing with last year's figures for now, but I understand your point. Yes, Lori?
Well, Gary, would an easy way to give him that answer be basically whatever rolled over into the general fund?
Right.
Goes into these undesignated.
Right, so if you rolled over, 20,000,
Yeah.
because what happens on the revenue side is some people don't pay their taxes and some people, I understand how you're trying to look at it, but it's not exactly a science like that, but whatever rolled over into the general fund would be what was left over.
No, I understand that, but it's what, and you're doing line items, so you gotta figure out what you actually spent in the years prior, and not what you thought you were gonna spend, and then work on that basis, like Danny was saying a while ago, I'll discuss with the
So you're saying you want more than 1 year?
Well, it's gonna be a lot of information to put on one page, and it's gonna make things font very small. I will say though that, keep in mind that every year, we always bring in that last year's final expense. So you see the approved, this is an evolution, these numbers track each other from year to year. So we build our budget from 2017-18 budget, when it was built, they were looking at the year expenses the year before, and likewise the year after that, and the
Yeah,
year
I
after that, and the
understand
year after that.
But like you have in line in previous year activity here, though, you have $978 on the first line. So Okay, never mind. I'll discuss it with the finance committee and we'll go from there.
Good, Ross, keep going.
Electronic equipment, that's to have the radars in our vehicles calibrated to make sure that they're accurate and legal, they're certified. Repairs, those are for the school lights up at the elementary school, if there's maintenance that needs to be done on those. Gas, oil, same as, we're gonna go with same as last year. The repair and maintenance in the vehicle, what I'll do is I'll go back 3 years ago when we purchased our last new vehicle to see what we actually spent in the maintenance that year, so to give us a more accurate number to use for this year. That leaves us with a budget, we're about $17,668 under where we were last year for the budget.
With the exception that we're not done the police contract, but we did put a 2% COLA, and we have to adjust Ross's repair line, whatever the phone thing is gonna come out, we make any changes, that'll probably be way in the end of the budget process. I do wanna say what's different about the police budget this year. When Debbie retired, she was full-time, so what we did was we didn't put another full-time person there. Reason why is because when we went from having dispatch from Vescom, and they didn't want to do that no more, we went with the county, and you see that cost in there now for 13.5, which is the police department's share. Some of Debbie's old work was related to that too, so that the dispatch side of things. So what we did was we had a person in the finance office who's now working half-time there at PD as well. So there's a savings in labor costs over last year because we didn't, that secretary position is half-time now. And the health benefits as well. We don't have to pay the full health benefit of a full-time employee there. We already had, well, that cost, that health cost is shared by both the town office and the police department.
Is that halftime thing working out, Gary?
It's a lot of work. Learning curve too, you know,
Yeah.
Amy's really great in the finance office, and she does a lot of the value recycling, bookkeeping, for us, and a lot of the other things as well. So she's really good and thorough there, and when she came on, obviously there's a learning curve, to that, so she's busy, but it's working.
Quick learner, she asked a lot of questions. And what Jamie and I have done is, a lot of the things that Debbie was doing that, we prioritized what we would want Amy to do, so Jamie and I picked up a lot of those duties. We split those, so.
I just wanna make sure that the workload
It's
on
working
all the
well.
employees is bearable. You know, you don't wanna swamp anybody.
Okay, Jason?
I think one of the reasons why we pushed off voting on the contract negotiations is to see this number here, see where we were at. Because our idea, I believe, was to fit the two together and see what that end number would end up being after the contract negotiations. So that's kind of something we want you to keep in mind, where it looks good now, once we come up with negotiations, that, you know, we might have to come back and revisit that final number to see if it needs to be played with a little bit.
Okay. Any other questions about Department 310 police expenses? Okay. What's the next one, Gary?
You, Ross?
Thank you.
Public Works, Department 500.
Kevin, the seat is hot for you.
That's fine.
Been there before.
You wanna leave him your gun, Ross?
And then. Well, you only got one
Can
thing.
we vote on that?
That's not gonna be hard, you only got half a page.
All right, Gary, did you want to say anything before we allow Kevin to go here?
Just kick it off by saying, we have a great public works department. There's a lot of work that these guys do in-house. We don't, not all of our equipment is under warranty. So we have a mechanic shop do a lot of work, not only for our equipment, but they'll service the ambulances and whatnot, and they do a lot of fabricating, repairs. There's not a lot of things that they don't do, even motor jobs and transmissions and stuff like that. The only thing that they really don't do, I think, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, is the warranty work that they can't touch. It has to go to the dealer. So, but, a good department, they work hard. They make they'll turn $1 into $1.50 for us, every day of the week, so.
Okay,
Well, I'll kick it off, and just to let you know that there was a 2% increase over our whole budget this year, $23,305. And that was on insurance, retirement and all that. And then we also upped up the part-time help, $10,000 because of our hot top project we have coming up for the next 2 years. Plus we have the bridge, I'm sure we're gonna have affiliations with that. And what's happening is that the guys I'm seeing they have vacation time and we're having a hard time to take it. So I'm trying to relieve some of that and try to interrupt services as minimal as possible. So with that being said, we can start off from the top. Salaries and wages went up a little bit because of the cost of living. Main state retirement was $2,000 or $2,500 more because of it goes by percentage. Health insurance was also maybe because one of the persons, I think, got off of the parents' plan and then ended up by jumping on his own. Social Security went up a little bit. Employer Social Security, same thing. Next one, pretty much from there down, we've been holding a flat line since 2016. There are a couple of things that have changed, but we'll go through it. State surplus auction, we don't do that no more. We used to put $1,000 a year, but we got out of that. Books and periodicals for the office, $200, which stayed the same. It actually went down from 2017. Clothing and safety equipment, which is boots and gloves and stuff like that for the guys. Contracted services went down a couple years ago because of what we had did with getting out of doing our winter sand. We shifted it to the line item where it belonged, the costs. Employee physicals, $1,200, stayed the same. License, permit, and certification, that's for our, to go to the river gravel, that renews this year. I'd like to keep that, I think it's $600 or $700 for like a 3 or 5 years. That's like an insurance policy. If something happens that we cannot find gravel nowhere else, then I'm able to use that resource. And because once we lose that permit, we can never get it back. I think we're the only town in the state of Maine that is able to haul gravel from the river, if need be. Postage, $100, $500 for printing and advertising. Or sorry, $2,000 for printing and advertising.
no, you're
No,
right.
you're right.
Okay, sorry, yeah. Travel and training is $2,000. It had went up a couple years ago, but that's because of the classes that we need to take now for the state or other things. So, but like I said, we don't usually use all of it, but it's good to have it if need be. Office supplies stayed the same. General supplies, $30,000, stayed the same. Janitorial supplies stayed the same. Street supplies, $9,000, stayed the same. Electricity, $7,500, stayed the same. Telephone and internet is $3,500. The sewer bill is $1,340. It had gone up a little bit from the past because of the sewer rates that had gone up. Heating, fuel, we put it at $17,000 with a question mark, and that's gonna change with what we just opened the bids for tonight. Water fees, $1,600. Next is minor equipment, which consists of like buying spark plugs for our camper and stuff like that. And then there's also a repair that we use that sometimes for our office if our photocopier needs work or stuff like that. Gas, diesel, and propane, $70,000, stayed the same. Repair maintenance has stayed the same for the past 3 years, and I'll be very upfront that right now I think we are down to $15,000 in our repair account, and it's gotta last till July. Stuff has been going up every week.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. We just blew a chain on our snow blower again last week. The last time we bought it, a year and a half ago, it was $900. Same exact thing today, $1,400. And it's like that everywhere as you go. The minute that they say gas and fuel and oil is going up, everything is going through the roof. So that's probably gonna be something that we're gonna have to address in the near future, because we got a lot of equipment that's getting older, and you know, when you get older, more bubbles come out, so.
What would the number increase be, you think, for an, you know, just a lucky guess?
I would say probably another $10,000 to $20,000 to be, because, an oil change for that is $300. We went to Daigle and Holton to reset some codes, that was $5,000. And everything today is all computerized, and you cannot, we do as much as we can in-house, but, you know, it's very expensive.
Do you happen to know over the past couple of years, have you always, I'm assuming based off the numbers that we're seeing on there, we were always pretty close to that 70,000 annually.
Yes,
I don't think it was a year we would have dropped, because you would have lowered that number at that point.
I don't think we can, we've been, like,
Yeah.
one year we're at 61.5, and I think we went above that by like 3,000 or 5,000, so that's when we adjusted it.
Yeah.
So like I said, you know, we're gonna have to address that, because that, or we're gonna have to start parking equipment, or, I don't know, ask for donations or something, because the price is not going down. Okay, next, sand and gravel, 30,000, that stays the same. Chemicals, 100,000, that stayed the same, but I suspect, like, I put out two, like, prices through Maine Salt, and then piggyback with the state of Maine, all the towns in the state of Maine that want to try to get a better rate, and then I pick from the two whichever's cheaper. I'm suspecting that it's gonna go up this year. We're paying $83 a ton, but I'm sure with the fuel hike, transportation, it's gonna go up. Hot top, 100,000, that's just, it's nowhere near enough for the conditions of our roads, but thankfully, this year that the people voted in for us to put down some hot top and get us through for a little while. Next is a,
Excuse,
yeah,
isn't that one, because that one there is just for regular hot topping purposes, like you tear out a piece of road and you repair it and you patch it back up.
sidewalks, repair. It used to be that we had
But what it's
$350,000 a year in that
Right.
account, the hot top. But they've shifted over to our road repair.
Okay, so you're 350 change, but in that 350,000, how much were you spending a year when you were using it?
325. I was keeping 25 for cold patch, the patch in town, and then call out to fix curbings and
Right.
little pieces of sidewalk.
But now you can do the same work for 100,000,
No,
104,000.
what happens is that they shifted it over to our road reserve, because there was something with that.
It's on another one.
It's on another line item further down.
Yeah.
They just shifted the cost from one spot to a different.
Because we had the hot top before
What happens is it ties to our fiscal year. We can't have projects that overlap one
Right.
fiscal year to the next. And so by putting the same amount of money into capital reserves, that sets it aside, so if they don't, the board can spend that money, it puts it in like a special bank, a reserve account, and then the board can, at the request, Kevin can make the request to the board,
Like you
I
did
transfer
last
it out of
year,
reserve.
yes.
When you did in July, August, and September,
Yes.
and when you ran out of money, you had to get more money to continue
Well, I
working.
just had to keep out, they gave me a set
Oh,
amount,
okay.
and
You ran
then
out of it and you went back.
I went back, and I
Okay.
went back, so. We
Okay.
didn't go over, I
No.
requested a certain amount at a time to just do like a progress report as we
Okay.
go, yeah.
All right.
Lori, go ahead.
So Gary, it's on a page called capital purchase, but if you wanna write it down next to your 100,000, the other amount is $264,500.
And that's
So
where
the
that,
total he actually has for this account is $364,500.
okay, well, we'll take that up later.
Hmm.
No, I'm just asking.
Okay, after that, moving on is signs. You know, as far as with the wind we've been having, signs are falling, poles are breaking. That hasn't changed, and the price has almost doubled since then. Construction materials, 6,500. They've bought that actually down, well, it's been the same, but when I first started here, it was triple that amount. And that's to buy sewer pipe, foam, whatever we need to do road construction. Oils and lubricants, 8,500. We bought that up a couple years ago, and I'm suspecting we've already, when the elections were over, we had went down to Bangor to bring our Bobcat, and on the way down, our oil salesman called and said the oil is going up. I think it was 4 or 8%. It was like days after the election. So I'm suspecting that's gonna go up again. And the other thing that you need to keep in mind is that it sounds like a lot, but we buy it in bulk. And what happens is when we service the ambulance, we'll pump a quart of grease, a tube of grease in there. We don't charge them for that. We dump half a gallon of antifreeze because it's low. So keep in mind that
Yeah, your numbers look a little bit
it looks
worse.
higher, and then also at one point, we're gonna have to say, listen, maybe we might have to pull a little bit out of each department to incur our costs, because I'm finding that we're the big brother for a lot of other departments, and the expense comes out of our,
You still,
and I can't afford that no more, because like I said, we're doing anything and everything to keep the cost, and like I said, besides the wages, everything has stayed flat. We've done anything we can to try to interrupt minimal service, but at one point, when you pull in every direction, you're gonna have to say ouch, and,
do we still pay to keep the buses warm in the winter?
they helped out this year. They bought the last door. We put the heating system in, which is working great, and I talk to Peter every week or so, and everything is good, but there's still insulation. You figure sewer.
Did the school help out with any of that?
No,
Well, they helped out to pay the cost of the door,
yeah, which was
And-
$3,600.
yeah.
But as far as the electricity, the sewer, the water, and that, no, nothing yet.
That needs to be addressed.
I would address that too.
I thought that was brought on the table last year to get that addressed. So it still hasn't been addressed this year? Well, somebody's dropping the ball somewhere.
Yeah, we have.
No, because that was addressed last year. Remember you guys talking about it 2 or 3 times last year, that they should be picking up some of the tab, and if it still hasn't been addressed, then somebody on the board is dropping the ball and not getting it
I
done.
think it has been addressed. Gary, can you comment on this, or
No, I think there was a desire by this board to have a discussion
with
with the school about costs like this.
cost sharing and how we are going to charge them and they're gonna charge us, and it's becoming, some of us certainly consider a mute point at this point.
I think we're looking at robbing Peter to pay Paul, essentially. It's all coming out of the budget at the end of the day, but I think what Kevin's getting at is,
Right, the
you know,
department.
his budget's going higher and higher.
That's
And he is, a lot of that is due to the fact he's basically sub-working out of the other departments.
Sure.
But they're not funding that part of it, so he's got a valid point in understanding that
Yes.
that's going up, but it's not due to just public works as well, I think he's getting at.
Yeah.
My question is, the year-to-date expensed out is at 73, the budget, the proposal is 85. Do you think with whatever you anticipate that would go up, is that enough to cover it in the current year? It's hard to say.
It's hard to say, because we already had one price increase, and I've seen up to 2 and 3 per year, so I'm guessing no. But like I said, we've been shuffling and doing what we can to keep her flat.
My only concern is on his end, that's the third line item that he's anticipating to go up, but we really haven't adjusted it in this budget yet. So that, to me, those are triggers that we may be over budget come the end of this year for his department on those items. And he's clearly letting us know at this point that he's underfunded in some of these areas. Now, whether we should take that from somewhere else or
And I don't
not.
want them to take the wrong, that I'll help out everybody, I mean,
Right.
as much as I can, but
But they have to
I
pay their
mean, it's, in my eyes, because at the end of the day, I have to answer to 3,800 people, and the board of selectmen, and the finance, and the town manager. I'm doing the best I can to try to keep everything as
Do you
cheap as
service
possible.
the school buses too?
No, they have a mechanic for that.
Is it done in your garage?
Yeah, they had the last 3 bays.
They have bays?
Yeah,
The last
yeah,
one.
well, they have the 3 bays. And we pay the
Three of
maintenance and all that. That's where he's coming from.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lauren.
But I think one thing to keep in mind is like, saying robbing Peter to pay Paul, I agree with that because, it I get it looks bad for this department,
Right.
Right,
but it's all taxpayer money in the end, and it's all the same pockets we're hitting. And it would be good to make sure that that's out in the open and that we have that discussion, but, I wonder, Kevin, is it possible, like, I know construction materials have gone up a lot, I know, could you, I'm not asking, you know, could you look at these items and just give us back a list, like, I find with these budgets that you guys are so fixated on trying to please people and please us and make your budget as low as you possibly can. And it's fine, but sometimes it's not reality, and nobody here is gonna hang you if you come back and you say, listen, this is what it really needs to be.
Yep.
And let us decide if we feel like we can squeeze that in, because it was much like the grader and the fire trucks, and if you guys don't tell us, we can't fix it for you.
And what's,
And, you know, so come and at least give us and say, listen, it needs to be 10% more, 20% more, and let us figure out if we can,
because what's
you know.
happening is now, is like when we run out of our construction, I'll put some in the street account, because it's the same thing. So maybe we can, I don't know if it'd be worth it to combine the two accounts, I don't know.
Which one's that, Ken?
I'm just saying, like, we have a construction account and we have a street account, which is pretty much the same thing, because if you put sewer lines in the road or manholes or covers, it's, you know, it was just how it was done in the past, and,
Well, I think, you know, what Lori's really trying to get at,
yeah, and I understand.
you know, is that, you know, we all understand right now that everybody's gonna be facing a 10 to 20% increase in cost across the board, and yet you're putting figures here that resemble the prior year, so is that realistic? And again, you know, if you have to look at these figures again and try to give us a little bit truer picture of what it could cost, I think this board would entertain that. Yeah.
Coming to Kevin's defense, there's not a department within the town that has as many operational vehicles as that department. And if you've ever run any equipment whatsoever, breakdowns are totally unforeseen, and the breakdowns on that kind of equipment are extremely costly. So, coming back to, you know, what is a need? If his loader or if his snow blower goes down, I consider that a need, because if his snow blower doesn't go out, the ambulance doesn't go out, fire doesn't go out. So that department there, in my mind, is probably the most important department in all of the town. If they don't go out, nobody goes out.
So I guess if you're understanding what the board's trying to say here,
I can
you
come
know,
up with something.
I think we're all a little bit lenient to what your figures are,
It is what it is. I mean,
exactly, you know?
I'm just, like I said, I understand, and I'll work on something like that, but it's hard to predict, because
Yeah,
I've got a culvert on 16th Avenue that should have collapsed 3 years ago, and I've been patching it and putting it off, and just
Yeah, but you know what
around
we
it.
mean, Kev.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
understand.
You know, when we're talking about some of these figures here, especially chemicals and asphalt,
Yeah, I
sand
can
and
do that.
gravel.
We're asking you to spend more money.
wait, that's not what I meant.
Keep going, Kev.
I'd like to just have a more realistic shot at it, so we can look at it, because I flagged them for us to talk about.
yeah.
Okay, I'll try to work on that this week, next week, so next time we meet, maybe I can try to have something for you guys.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Kev.
they're saving money, but there's also being a little bit too tight where they may hurt us.
Okay, so next account, the guardrail account, 500, it stayed the same. Next is the sidewalk account, and we call that the sidewalk account, but that's pretty much what we use to spray the weed control on the sidewalks and in town. Next is the road striping, and that's what we use to paint all the crosswalks and stuff like that in town. And the road lines, when we're done hot topping our roads in the back settlements especially, we're gonna go out and put yellow lines. I haven't done it the past couple of years, because when you hit a bump, you're all over the place, and then they call and say, was the guy, you know, drinking when he was working, or?
Kevin, with your increased budget in asphalt and tarring for this year, are you gonna need more for that painting, or is that gonna cover Is all
No,
you-
because I have barrels that I've been putting aside for a rainy day, so I'll have more than enough to cover.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. Next is the water district maintenance, pump house. That's gone up in the past couple of years, and what's happening is that for the past couple of years, we've had a lot of construction in town. The main DOT uses that to fill their tanker truck, some of the contractors in town. And since they tore apart the dam number 2, all the silt is coming down to dam number 1. And our outlet, there's no screen, so we're trying to figure out a way to put a cage on there with like a catwalk to get there so we can clean that. Because once it fills up inside, we gotta have pelletiers go in there and pump it out, and that's, you know, usually a couple times a year. We share the cost, I think, with the water district, the bill is for that, we split that. We had talked about charging the contractors in the past, but I mean, how do you figure that?
We talked about that last
Yeah,
year. remember?
so I think that we should just leave things as it is, and when it's kaput, because the motor is getting tired, and Don Chassis told us it's a $25,000 plus repair, then we'll go to plan B,
So,
put a pump in the book, and
so with the bridge construction coming and that place probably gonna get a lot more traffic, do we need to be proactive about that setup over there, or?
that was another concern. I think that they're probably gonna pull out of the river, because it makes no sense to take brook water from there and bring it there when you have millions of gallons. I'm just talking about the contractors and us when we wash our streets and stuff like that. So we're hoping that if we have a chance shortly, that we can, this year or next year, to try to come up with a plan to work on that. And then after that, the only thing is, Public Works Garage, we've got $5,000 a year for, building maintenance. And, we just finished the last of our doors and our heating system, and then I talked to Gary about our furnace room. It's leaking, the sheetrock is all full of water, the ceiling's about to collapse. So I got a price I called 3 contractors, and 2 of them, I called multiple times and they never reached back to me. And then one of them got back to me, and I think if we help them out, we're in the 17 to 20,000 range. To take out that whole section and then redo it, and then just the section where the furnace is, you gotta have fireproof sheetrock, up to code and stuff, so. And then we would metal the rest of it. And then,
Separate building?
huh?
Is that a separate building?
No, that's the one, the little lean-to in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
front. Half of it is an oil room for our waste oil and oil tank. And then the other side towards Madawaska, probably 10, 12 feet by there, that's our furnace room.
And an add-on building.
Yeah, and then they patched it for the past 15, 20 years, and now it's leaking. The sheetrock is molded, and it's pretty,
So 5,000 won't cover that.
no, but I think that we might have a little bit of money left over under contracted services, maybe that I can to do that, because we didn't pick up snow as much as this year. We had a good winter for the most part, so.
I think what he's saying is that you're gonna do that work out of the budget that you're in right now.
I'm hoping to, I'll know
That's why
more
it's
in the
not-
next
it's not
couple
in
of
the
weeks what
budget
I'm
for-
left with.
Okay.
Yeah, so. At the end of that, like I said, you know, the only thing this year, where we don't plan on purchasing any equipment, we pushed it back a year. But our wheeler at the lake, we usually replace our lake plows, Guyan Road and the lake every 15 years. We're going on year 20 and 21. It's got 14,000 hours, it's a 2002. They usually plow for 15 years. The frame is about to break in half behind the cab, it's rotted out between the double frames. And the inspection station said that after this year, they don't want to see it back because it will not pass inspection. The cab on the passenger side is rotted out, it's about to go through the floorboard, and the box has been repaired, the dump body has been repaired 2 or 3 times, and it's beyond repair. It's
And the cost of a replacement?
the cost of the replacement, everything but the sanders, we refurbish them, we use them for 3 plow lifespans. So this will be the last lifespan. So the truck, the plow setup, the blades, everything is between 190 and 200,000. It's gone up,
Yeah.
it's gone up quite a bit.
We In Senegat, we paid it,
But I think they bought a sander too, that's why.
what they bought was the Four Seasons stainless steel box that has the built-in sander, so
Oh, no.
it's not the slide-in one, and it dumps in front of the wheel rather than behind.
And us, our sander is good, it's good for one more life span of maybe 15 years again, so. And that's probably, I would guess, if I have to say, 15, 20, 25 grand now, it's gone up quite a bit, so.
So you're not asking for a vehicle money at all?
Nope.
Lori, go ahead.
Me again,
Yes.
sorry. So Kev, you have, I know we're gonna get to capital purchases, but I'm sorry, for me, this is all together here. Right now you have 364.5, right?
Yep.
We're gonna pave, starting
This year,
this year. Do you need 364.5?
For the paving,
Do you still need the full 364.5 for this year? Because I think when we get to the paving part of the plan was to take some of the 264.5 to pay some of that payment, correct? Because we're paying now 117, I think?
117 for our old loan, that's gonna be done next year.
it was
So-
224, the balance, but I was under the impression that we were only gonna pay the loan next year.
Right, you're 100% right. What I'm getting at is, can the 117 go toward the wheeler this year? Can we could you just think about how, I don't know if you can make that work, but we gotta set ourselves up for that
I know what
payment
you're
anyway.
saying, but how do I say that? I have a plan of action. It's just that I wanna take that money and put that in the road reserve. And sit on it, because even if it sits there, we don't lose it. If I need a truck sooner than later, because it's a year out, and I think that, I've talked to Scott and the guys at the shop, and I think that we can stretch it out till next year, because what's happening is our payloader, the last one we bought, the lease is paid, and the truck in town is paid, so that'll pay off 2 loans. And I was gonna take the wheeler and just roll it over, so it doesn't change nothing. I'm just trying to build up a reserve, so if something would happen one year that our loader lets go at the last minute, that we have a reserve or something for a rainy day. Or if a road would wash out, that, like on 16th Avenue, that's a $100,000 job. I wanna have a cushion, because right now, we barely have anything, and I'm trying to build that up to 300 plus because Madawaska is a big
But you know,
area.
Kev, when you do that, you're really hurting yourself too at the same time. I mean, what Lori is really suggesting is that you actually establish funds for your wheeler. Because if anything happens as you're itemizing right now, that becomes a major expense for you, you've gotta take care of it anyway, you know? And all of a sudden now, that account is depleted, and we're,
I was
faced
just
with-
doing it so we didn't have too many leases out there, because we still have the loader, the truck, and the pickups. That was 4. So I was waiting to cancel 2 off, so it doesn't change nothing in asking for more money or adding another debt or more debt on top of debt.
Okay.
That's what I was,
I think we're saying the same thing, because I was wondering if that 117 could be, I mean, I'm not saying you need to buy the wheeler now, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, could we take that 117, since we're not using it for paving yet, and put that into an account
Well, the 117 is a loan though, so.
for,
The
not
17
for this, you're on a loan this year, your last payment for your loan is this year?
This is the last payment this year, I believe. It's budgeted in.
And then the next budget year, your payment shouldn't hit this budget,
Right,
the next
so-
budget
So you're
year.
talking about next year?
So you got a free year in the middle, don't you?
this is.
Not a-
the
not a
free
free year, but-
or This is, I think this is the year,
This is the,
if I see right.
do you have one more payment? Or with this, with
It'll be
the,
this last year, yeah.
this is the last year that we're paying off this year?
One of them, yeah.
Okay.
I guess, you know, we can just think about it and let me know. Cause I'm thinking if that 117 is freed up, let's, like,
Well,
Assign it.
Let's
Assign
double
it.
check on that.
yeah.
I wanna mention one thing too, and specific to reserve accounts and road reserve accounts, and why it's important is, like Kevin was talking about 16th Ave, covered by the Knights of Columbus. That culvert there is one of the first plastic culverts that they came out with, when they went from steel and they came out with a new plastic. And if something wrong with that plastic,
It's failing.
it's failing, it's busting in a weird way. But Kevin's been able to slip it and have it secured. We have a lot of big culverts in town, and big culverts are considered bridges by NDOT. So the road, the Gagnon Road Bridge, the big culvert for the brook there, that's considered a bridge. City Gate, by the fire station, considered a bridge. The state of Maine goes by every single year, and they look at our bridge assessment because they're by law mandated to assess bridges. So they consider culverts as bridges. And they tell us, well, this is a concern, they take some pictures, and they say, well, you probably should do something here and do something there. And so we try at best to keep them satisfied and hold them at bay, but, you know, like, it's conceivable, like, in the next 5 years, we're gonna have to take that 16th Ave culvert and fix that. And that's why road reserve accounts are so important, so we don't have to incur that cost all at once. We can put some money in, it's, what, Gyle Road Bridge as well, that has a lot of undermining issues at the outlets and the inlets that we're gonna have to address. It's not a crisis per se, but we had actually looked at getting a grant, DEP has a grant program on that, but
It was costing us more than it was worth, I
it
said.
was a lot of money. Gyle, that's potentially a $300,000-$500,000 project, that culvert. Because it's coffer dams and pumping and DEP and the whole lot, engineering, so it's why we really focus on the reserve accounts, so we can build up. And when something happens that's unforeseen, this board has the financial funds to fix it. And we're not, if it's not in the budget, then we can't do it, then we're going to town meeting and we're borrowing money. So I think we've made some great strides and starting to put more money into reserves, and I'd like to see that continue.
Is it possible to maybe look like at a really good used truck? Maybe we could do a little savings there? I mean, there's a lot of companies that are failing this
What
time of year.
happens is that, because we have municipality discount, we're buying a new one cheaper than they can sell a used one. Because on a loader, we can buy a brand new loader for $130, $140, and if you're a Joe Schmo of the street, it's $180 to $200,000. So, and there's no warranty if you buy new. So that's why that we push to try to get, because we get a government discount.
Gotcha.
I think concerning on my end, at least from a finance committee's point of view, I think there's a lot of work, or a lot of thinking to do on this particular budget in general. To know that, I mean, we could pass the budget this year, but I think in 2 or 3 years down the road from now, we're gonna be in a bind if we don't start looking at this stuff now. That's what I think is facing.
Yeah.
So I think as a board, you're probably gonna have to take on some of that somewhere and start looking at how you would start addressing his concerns. We've got plenty of warning right now, so I mean,
I think
it might not change this year, but
And that's what I'm trying to do,
We're
is I'm
taking
trying
this
to
into-
spread things out, so all of a sudden, one day, we don't come in and we're $2 million that, I'm trying to ease the pain a bit and spread it out as much as we can without, safety concerns and stuff like that.
Couldn't agree more with Chris, because if, say that culvert on 16th Avenue gives way, bottom line, that's not Kevin's problem. That's our problem.
That's right, that's
our
right.
problem.
That's right.
Anything else for Kevin?
no, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Kevin.
Kevin. Good job, I think you're underpaid.
Give him another cola.
Now, Gary, what's the next
Give me your
one?
Pepsi.
Gerald's in the hot seat,
That's right.
That's Department,
130.
130?
anything there, Gary, you want to address before we have Gerald speak up?
Just want to point out the heating oil numbers, we're gonna have a number for you next time, obviously. So that's one that,
Okay.
for the most part, this is a budget that's pretty consistent. And Gerald can talk about it.
Yeah, pretty much the same, pretty much the only part that I take care of is the supplies for janitor supplies and the utilities. And the buildings repair, it's pretty much crossover from year to year, as you can see. There's nothing much, I replaced the lights, their LED lights a few years ago, so that's why the electricity went down a little bit, so there is an advantage to that, to change into LEDs. And other than that, it's pretty much crossed over. And a lot of these line items is for the town office itself.
And I'll jump in on certain things, because some of like our computer system and our software, municipal software system, you know, are in this budget. So, I can talk about those as we head down the line. So let's go down line by line, Gerald, and,
Okay.
and then we can ask all the questions, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Okay. The miscellaneous, well, it's part, again, that's for the town office too, when they buy some, whatever they need there, because my part is more under the building repairs and maintenance for when I get something. And then you got the supplies for janitor supplies, that's pretty much the same yearly. Then for utilities, electricity, past couple of years, it went down, like I said, since I put $1,000 for the, as you can see, in the year of 2018, 2019, changing the LED lights.
That paid for itself.
Oh, that paid, that went down quite a bit, yeah. Telephone, well, that's a town office
Yeah.
line item. The trash, it's about pretty much the same, consistent every year. I checked with them, they were not bringing the prices up this year. Sewer line, the sewers, it's the same, I guess, same thing. Heating oil, well, that's the question for tonight. Water fees, which is the same. And the internet website, well, that's the town office upstairs line thing. The software computer, again, that's the town office. Vehicle and equipment, that doesn't exist.
I'll talk about the software and the computer, so,
Okay.
and I'll go back up to the internet website, so we pay $115 a month for time for Spectrum, so that's $1,380 for the internet there, and then we pay $450 a year for the website hosting, and we budget in like $1,670, like for updates to the website and maintenance, stuff like that. And on the software and equipment, so there's two things to that. So we have managed services for our computer system. We don't have an in-house IT. When this project, the computer project, when we went to managed services, happened the year after the phones upgrade. We weren't networked with our computers at all. Every computer was on an island. The only computers that were networked were the ones that had cash receiving, the finance office and the front end. We didn't have a legitimate town email system. We were all outdated on our computers, on antivirus, and you know that with hacks and ransomware, we'd see municipalities get their stuff hijacked and being held for ransom to get their data back. So what we did is the board back then decided that either, you know, we gotta do something. Can we look at in-house IT, or do we do managed services? So the managed services part of that, of that $49,000, is $30,600 that we pay for the company that we have a contract with. In that amount of money, that includes the managed services. So we are in the cloud, we're in their cloud, okay? They have all the redundancy. Our office, our computer system is Office 365. So Office, we don't have to keep like updating our version of Microsoft, bringing in new software. It's always updating. That's all part of that cost. So we're paying that to the provider of managed services. He's paying those costs for us. Cost of our email accounts, which all have to be archived and protected. That's every account that we have for email has a cost to it. That's built in. So the cost of managed services includes where our data resides, the backup systems, the redundancy, the Office 365, the email stuff, you know, like email accounts and all that. So when we went to bid on that, there's 3 companies that bid on that. They were the cheapest, okay? By far. We saw costs of $55,000 a year for managed services for an account of this size. So we went with the cheapest cost that we had back then. So I know that Carol is looking into, we're gonna have to look into going into another RFP. If we're having this stuff done in-house, we're gonna need IT to do, because we're not all capable to service our computers. And with Trio, the municipal accounting system that we have that does all of our motor vehicles, our property, real estate, our personal property, your vital records, everything, town business, including the budget that's in front of you, comes through Trio. And it doesn't like upgrades. It doesn't work well with upgrades. Every time Microsoft 365 does an upgrade, we're always troubleshooting issues because our software has glitches with it that's way above our expertise that we can fix ourselves. So I think that you guys all have, anybody that has a large number of computers in their business knows you have IT. It's a cost. And it wasn't there before because we really were outdated and antiquated and in danger. So we're going to be looking to put out probably another RFP to try to keep the pencil sharp on those costs, which I'm not sure if we'll have it done in time for this year. Mind you that if we had another bidder, that were to get managed services from where they're at now, we're moving a lot of stuff, data and accounts, and so it's just not a simple thing to do. It's very possible to do, but it takes time. Part of that cost as well, we pay $14,462. $15,908. We're running it to $900 for our Trio annual license for our software system. Trio. Sounds like a lot of money, but Trio is in sync with Maine's Maine's systems, motor vehicles, vitals, everything is in there, IFNW. So any upgrades and changes that are made, okay, on the state side of things, that's working in the background. They do all those updates for us. So the municipal accounting, that's part of that stuff is always changing. It works behind the scenes. We don't change that. There are only 2 companies in the state of Maine that provide this kind of municipal accounting system. There's this and Munis, and by far this is the highest percentage of towns use the Trio system. We also have in there $2,500 for the module for personal property. Does that still need to be in there, Carol?
It's part of the Trio.
It's part of the Trio. So
It's in there.
we are moving our personal property accounts out of pencil and paper, that's the old way, to putting it into Trio. Right now, we're basically doing everything by hand on paper, coming up with that number, and we're just dumping the bottom number into Trio for personal property accounts. Very labor intensive. The new module for personal property does all the depreciation. Once you set up your client and you put it in there, you put it, the assessor puts in the depreciation schedule that we use, and all that calculates in the background. So it's going to be an enormous time saver for us, and it's going to help us get current. So that's built into that cost, if anybody's wondering, because it's a big number, and I think you guys should know what it's all about.
Can I just ask one question on the telephone line item? Maybe I missed it. The budget was at $57.50 and the expense out was $92. Why was that so high?
I'll have to go back and we'll get that answer for you. You don't have that in front of you? I don't have that in front of you now.
I want to say last year we talked about it went down because you had pushed out to each department the cost of the phone to those departments, correct?
Well, that's the previous year that you're looking at, remember that number is the end of 2020. We're in that new year right now, so we think we're gonna be better than that,
Okay.
okay? But I will still check on that.
Okay.
So I do have a comment with those managed services. I know, I've heard a lot of feedback from some of the department heads that they're having a lot of issues with that managed services, and I think that it'd probably be a good time to look at the SLAs that we agreed to with that company and make sure that they're following through with those SLAs. You know, there's a lot of expenses that we've incurred of pieces of equipment that the town has purchased from this company that were dropped off at the location, halfway set up, never got working. We still paid for it, we still paid for the install, but to this day, those items aren't working. So I think we need to touch base with this company, make sure that they come back and complete the work that we've paid for, install the items we've paid for, and that they deliver to these department heads what the SLAs say they should be delivering.
Jason, what is that? What do you mean, SLA?
Service level agreement, so if they say, hey, you call us up, we'll be there in 24 hours to fix something, or this is the level of service that we promised to provide you, that they're actually meeting those expectations. The feedback that I'm getting from a lot of department heads is that they're not meeting those expectations whatsoever, so.
I would agree with that.
Excuse me?
I would agree with that.
So is there a penalty
Well,
that's placed upon them?
There should be, if not agreed upon, there should be something where if you're not meeting these SLAs,
It's not, I just wanna, it's not that I don't necessarily think that they're not needing it, but what happens is sometimes you have something with our office copier, and all of a sudden, the office copier stops communicating with the computer.
Right.
And is it the office copy? Because we have a lease on that, so is it Lax issue, or is it Northern Business? And so it's not always a clear who's responsible for that cost, kind of thing, so.
Female piece.
it's not, but if you're paying this company to manage all your services, they should be able to easily identify, hey,
Yeah.
this is what it is, and then they should be the ones calling up Levac Office Supply and saying, hey, our network is fine, you need to, I think that they should be doing more. I've been privy to a lot of information of, they came in here, they changed a password to one of the servers in one of the departments. The department head called them up and said, hey, I need your password. They came, picked up the server, refreshed the server for hundreds of dollars, okay, it was over $1,000, brought the unit back in nowhere near what that department wanted, with still a password on it, so the department head still can't get into his server,
But again, it's just I'm not discounting what you're saying, that server wasn't in the portfolio of the number of computers that was part of the contract. That was a separate,
which is fine.
that was a separate thing, so in the future,
Which is fine, but what I'm trying to get at is, if they installed a password on a piece of machinery that didn't belong to that service agreement, and they were asked, hey, give me your password, and without discussing anything with this department head, did all kinds of other things to the machine, and then charged them hundreds of dollars for it, you know what I mean? That's where I would have said, hey, we're not paying this bill at all. It wasn't in your agreement, we want the password removed, give it to us. This department head has all kinds of other things to worry about, they shouldn't have to be fighting with this company. And then this is other departments, there's one department who has a display screen installed in the lobby that had been working for years. This company came in, tried to integrate that into their system, and broke it. They sold that department a $400 or $500 part to fix it, okay? And it never worked since that day. That department had to contact another company to come in here, and in 3.5 minutes, got the original part working. So this other part that was purchased is sitting there, paid for, the labor to install that part paid for, but they're out. So I don't wanna waste money, I don't want the town, and I want the department heads to not have a hassle. And if that means we have to go out to bid and get another company who can meet these levels, or if we can kick this one in the butt and say, hey, we need to address this. We can't just sweep it under the rug and say, well, this or well, that. I think we need to start now and really,
I think we need a better defined agreement.
I agree, yeah.
That's the heart of the crux of the issue.
Yeah.
Is that, I think that's, what else do we have here, Darrell?
That's pretty much it now.
I think that's it.
That's pretty much it.
Any questions for Gerald? Very good, Gerald, thank you. No, I would need a motion here to go beyond our 2-hour limit. I could have a motion. We're already 10 to 15 minutes after the fact. Second?
Look at me, I'm ready to leave.
All in favor?
Opposed?
Yes, I saw it. How many more departments did you want to go through, Gary?
So the way we were kind of tackling this was, I brought, Gerald's here, he's got one more budget.
Yeah.
It shouldn't take too long, and we were gonna be like, see where we're at for time, and if we wanted to grab another budget that I'm responsible for, like Nat's elections, we can grab another one if we feel like we wanna go on, or we can call it a night.
About pollution control.
Yeah, you sit here and spend the night.
Too big of a budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mark's here, I don't think I invited him to go over his budget tonight, but he's here as a,
I don't know if he's still here.
Okay.
Yeah, he's here. I thought he was waiting for us.
I mean, if you guys wanna, could take, I don't know, Mark, it could take,
Mark, were you anticipating to sit down with us tonight?
No, I
Okay,
wasn't.
all right.
Okay.
Just-
But if you want to, I can entertain that.
No, we can wait.
No, it's okay.
So, do we want to do Department 135, is that what we're?
yeah, Gerald's here, so.
Okay, so, let's go to 135.
135 is safety complex. General supplies, the same thing, that's buying material, doorknobs or door closer or whatever it is. That's for supplies. Janitor supplies, it's the same, going down year to year. As utilities, electricity, it's the same thing. When I say that, it's the same thing, but with going into the LED lights, I was talking that with the ambulance department. They, since the past couple of years, have been they're going a wider terrain, taking care of San Gat and Frenchville, and Eric is saying that he has about like 30% more calls per year. So that means the doors, the heating system, the lighting is of course impacted more because the ambulance will go out more. When they come back in, they're frozen, and there's loss of heat, so, and heating and the pumps and all that. So changing the LED to lights, I'm absorbing whatever the cost increases for the ambulance, you might say, or any other departments that they add on, other electrical devices that will take electricity and not going up. So to my understanding is that changing to LEDs is bringing down the kilowatts or the expenses of electricity. The trash is the same thing. The sewer is about the same. Heating and fuel, again, that's for tonight, and the heating and fuel, changing of the windows, insulating better windows around the safety complex. Been doing that for the past 8 years, 10 years, are pretty much all done around the safety complex itself in the building here. I'll see down the road, down the other line items that I need, I'm asking for more money, not more, but changing some windows at the fire station here, the building of the fire station itself, which was built in 1965, but I'll go there when I reach that line item. Water fees, about the same. Building and repairs of the safety building, I brought it up 45, like anything else, everything is going up, so this year I had to change, for an example, this year I had to change the hot water system here for the safety complex here. So that was on this, but I was able to absorb that with the money for the building repairs. Communication tower, that doesn't exist anymore. That's transferred to the
EMA.
to the EMA. Special projects, again, I'd like to have $2,000, the same thing, to continue changing lights to LED, like in here, That's what I did this year. I got some more to be changed. Small windows, well, that's where the small windows, the only thing I got left here for the safety complex here is the windows going down the staircases. But that's not like being in a room or there's nobody sitting next to those windows. So I try to refer to changing windows in the fire station, which that was built in 1965. So those are the same windows, they're just one pane windows with a storm window on the other side. So like up to last week, you could write your name on the frost on the windows. And of course, and we only keep that, the building is kept at 55 to 60 degrees, but you still feel cold air coming out, so I think it would be worthwhile changing them windows. And I've got enough money in the budget of 2021 to buy the windows, but 21, 22, I'd get somebody to put them in. I wanna buy them now, so that way I can walk them in, so before, instead of waiting to see the next one to change them, so if I can buy them now and then put them in on the other budget, you might say. Roof repair, well, that it's under the capital reserve. Gary can talk about that.
Yeah, we did that last year.
Yeah, so we put in 50 last year, we're putting another 15,
Yeah.
55 for 50, you should all.
I want to point out too with Gerald, when he does the lights, the LED lights, he's using, leveraging town money to get efficiency main funds. So the cost of the projects are more than that. But, you know, whenever Gerald, we get notices that efficiency main has funds available, Gerald's been really good about applying and being successful in getting some efficiency main funds to help offset the cost of changing these lights.
Plus it saves money on electricity.
Plus it saves money.
How much more lighting do we have to change in this building?
How much more?
How many more?
Going the rate, I've got 2 more years. See if I can change. It depends on the efficiency, how much they rebate back.
Okay.
Last year, we had a bigger rebate. This year, I still go with
So how many do you have done?
30, I got 60 lights done. 30 last year, 60, there's now gold. I have another 30, with 40 lights, these here, like
About
those here.
60% done. Yep, okay.
No, yeah, but then I got the 8-footers in the garages where the fire trucks are to be done. And then 2 years ago, it was better to change the 8-footers because they're having a bigger rebate at that time.
Okay.
Now they got better rebates on the 2x4, they call them. So it plays on where you go, how it does. The police overhead door, well, that was, I changed that last time, in this budget.
Just a quick question, Gerald, on the communications tower, you didn't have anything approved last year, but there is a $1,000 charge expense year to date. You know what that was for?
That was from the previous.
Previous
You
year.
gotta go one more column. It's from the 2020. You know what I mean? It's not in this.
But like in the
Expense June-
2020 budget didn't have anything approved for it.
Yeah,
2019, 2020 is the.
Yeah.
for 2020 budget.
Yeah.
And then last year was transferred to Jim.
We just gotta go over one more column for that.
Okay.
That expense is from that previous,
Yeah.
relates to that 2019, 2020 budget year.
I got it.
I wanna, since we're all here, and I wanna ask Gerald, I know that the ambulance bays, doors, you know, we talk about heat loss. We also talk about, there used to be an air exchanger system in there, and we had issues with that. And if we could just have a little bit of talk about it, I don't think we can do anything with respect to the budget, maybe, but thinking long-term. One of the issues with ambulances is they rot really quick. Okay, the rust gets into the carriage of the ambulance unit itself, and you put those ambulances into a building that's heated, the worst thing you can do for a car is park it in a heated garage, and it causes it to rust. So because of that, our ambulances, not just us, they need to be heated, right? and I'm wondering is if we might think about in the future going to like a radiant heat system in there, okay? Where we would be able to do away with the air exchanger and it would dry out those ambulances much quicker. And it would preserve the life of our ambulances because we get the humidity out of the building much quicker. And the recovery time for heat with radiant heat in a garage like that is like this. So something we could think about in the future, if ever, I think it would preserve the life of our ambulances. And it would certainly help on cutting costs here, but it would definitely be an investment to make that kind of change to the heating system for that part of the for the ambulances.
Are you talking about radiant heat in the floor?
Yeah.
Recovery rate is much slower with radiant heat in the floor.
Well,
No, that's a given.
I don't know, I think that our Chamberlain has a radiant heat in their truck bay and
The recovery rate of an in-floor heating system is very, very slow. Very slow.
well, we could talk to some people that have it and see what we can get their thoughts on it, but
Yeah, I know they installed one at the airport a couple of years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it is slow. When you open that hangar door, it takes a while to warm back up.
8 hours.
I don't know the time.
8 hours for 6 degrees.
Any other questions for Gerald?
I just want to say that right now I'm working on the heat pumps. That main efficiency came out with a rebate on heat pumps on municipality buildings. And I'm working on that to see if it would be, how much it would cost to put it on the ambulance, the police department side. So this way, right now, the ambulance, they got a heat pump on their side, you might say, plus the heating of the building. It's just for the air conditioning, but I leave their heat pump on more in the fall. Before we had to start the heating system in the building, shut it off in the summertime, but start in the fall in September, beginning of September, because it gets cold at night, they sleep there, so it gets cool there. Now with their heat pump, I can wait till October before I start the heating system because the police department they get cold. So I can save a little bit there. I can pay the heat pump what it's gonna cost me to put them in the police department. If I can hold off if I can start off 4 weeks later, you might say, for the heating system. So before they get too cold that the heat pumps, the other parts of the building gets too cold. So if I can grab another month of saving the heat system in the spring and in the fall, that would pay the heating system or the heat pumps by themselves.
We need to consider,
In the
we
year.
need to consider what we're faced with in the next 2 years with, what's the name of the new power company? Not Emera, but Percent. We're getting a 25% increase in the next 2 years for delivery charge of electricity. So if you do the math on the heat pumps, I've looked into them, we need to be extremely careful. I am not a believer on the numbers that I've come up with. I am not a believer in heat pumps.
All right. Anything else for discussion here before we look for a motion to adjourn? If not, then I would introduce a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? All in favor? Motion to adjourn. All?
Chris has to adjourn.
Yes,
I motion to adjourn.
second. All those in favor?